Okay, everybody, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call this regular meeting to order. Allison?
Yes.
Here.
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 Yes. Okay, next, everybody can please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Allison, do we have any public comments? Nope. Okay. Next, we have presentations to the board, Special Olympics and Buddies Program.
Okay, we wanted to just talk with the board briefly tonight. This is Kathy Brennan-Better. Am I saying your last name right? Betar, okay. And Kathy's been with the Special Olympics for 33 years, since I get said. So we met with Kathy and Tracy Sharp and Luann in June regarding a potential partnership for what we had currently happening with our Special Olympics teams in the district, and then a stipend that was actually created 2 years ago under the contract that was called SE Buddies. And really what the intention of the SE Buddies stipends was to model programs that other districts have implemented where we take regular division students and pair them with low incidence students to do a variety of activities through adaptive PE, there's curriculums, so that we really have all of our students interacting together. And so it's a wonderful program. So we met, and there are actually so many new wonderful programs that Special Olympics has and can support. So we are going to be offering the SE Buddies program stipend this year. That will be located at Steele School. We'll have one for the 7-8 building, and then also one for the 9-12. So it's where our low incident life skills programs are located. And then we're also going to be implementing in those buildings something called the Unified Champions Curriculum. So it's basically about helping to create a really cohesive, unified school culture where everyone is valued, including our special needs low incident students. So I have personally seen this with my own children. Canton had a huge program when they were going through, and it's amazing. I would say that our regular division students get even more out of the program than our low incidence students do, and there are so many offshoots that we can build on this. So we will keep our 4 current Special Olympics teams that we have, which are bowling, basketball, soccer, and swimming. Track and field. Oh,
not soccer, but track, yes.
come on up here. I didn't even know you were here.
You're doing great.
Okay. She doesn't want that. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you were here. You snuck in. So we're keeping those, and then we hope to build in the future. They also have something through IESA, so eventually if we become an IESA school, we can participate in their Unified Sports Program, which is a wonderful program where we have regular division athletes that create teams with Special Olympics students, and they create a joint team, and they compete against other schools. And IHSA does the same. So
yeah, we have a lot of that going already going through grade 6, but especially with basketball, it's so popular. So we're really wanting to expand that. We want to get Galesburg on board, and the best thing about this whole thing is it doesn't cost you a penny. Free, 100%. We never charge our athletes to come to any event or anything like that. The only thing you guys are going to be out is some uniforms, possibly, and some transportation, facility usage, that type of stuff. But otherwise, we provide everything for free. There's no joining fee, there's no yearly fee, there's no nothing. So, and we cover all your bases from young athletes that start at age 3 all the way through your retired.
no, it's definitely something that we want to even start with our pre-K program and then work on. So we'll have more information to come, but I just wanted to introduce you to Kathy. And Tracy and Luann and Kathy have agreed to kind of co-chair a committee that they're going to take this and run with it. We'll be talking with the principals, and so I'm just super excited to see what it's going to do
I'm sorry, for us, Jen, which schools in our,
So we would have Steele, it says where our life skills program is, and then Lombard.
okay, I didn't hear Lombard last
I
time, so.
know, I did say Lombard,
Okay.
but no, Lombard, then
Okay.
7, 8, and
Okay,
then
I'm
12.
sorry. I
So
didn't hear it, okay, well.
Yeah.
This involves the differentials for these buddies program, then, correct?
Correct.
Have we done a job description for that yet?
We're working on those this summer,
Okay.
and so before we post them, we will have a goals for each one of those, so we know what the expectations are. Absolutely. Okay, any other questions? Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
No, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
look forward
We're
to
excited to get you guys on board.
working with Special Olympics. It's a great program. Moving on, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? Allison?
Ryan?
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Aye. Trudy?
Aye.
Hessad? Aye. Fuentes?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is the Building and Grounds Committee report. Ryan?
I think we're gonna do an update with some pictures, is that correct, Allison? I think it's the right screen. Jesus, Lori. Is that the same piece of paper I had? Oh,
There you go.
okay. Oh, everyone knows what these are. I should just say my secret. This way I won't really mess it up. No one else is here. It's very thin roof here. Okay, looks like the new track surface. Right here?
Yep, it's all done. Looks great.
It's great. And what's the life expectancy of this surface?
Well, as long as we stay on top of our structural spray, it'll last 10, 15, 20 years as long as we stay on top of it.
The big difference between 10 and 20.
Well, if we stay on top of it with a structural spray, we won't have to replace it.
Okay, that's great to hear.
So
And
then
you're on
I'm-
top of that.
So then I'm assuming that whatever maintenance plan we have, that's built into it.
Absolutely, we have to do structural spray.
Yeah.
Every
I mean,
3
I
years.
know we're looking at Mr. Matthews as the AD, but
I won't
Yeah.
be here forever.
Yeah.
well, not that you won't be here forever, but you're also not the maintenance guy.
Right, and this, and just, yeah, Mr. Matthews and I have some experience with this at our previous stop. It depends on usage, so it's a ballpark as to whether you need it every 3 years, 4 years, whatever. But based on the quality of the surface after a couple of years, you want to go back and inspect it as long as that structural spray stays on there. And we've been told 20 years, very achievable, and even 50 years is achievable as long as you stay on.
Keep spraying. Because this past surface only lasted us 10 years? 8 years. Not good. Not good. Oh, the courtyards. Obviously, it's even labeled. We had these areas where we put the additions on for the kindergarten rooms that were internal. So this is the king one, the one that's steel and smaller, but also is landscaped with a walkway and a ground cover throughout. So, and as well as 3 maple trees. These are the same, not the same, they're all state trees. Okay, they look good. And the Lombard one has a large patio, which we'll see how the school uses. It's up to them to make their determination. It's outside, right, the commons area, the walkway from the commons. So hope it's functional. And this is, I will say, is one of the proudest things I am about the Lombard edition, because I never liked kids having to look out their window and directly at a parking lot. And people used to park right outside these windows here. And it made it hotter because we had this concrete there, and now we have growing things better, much better. Huge improvement for the facility. Okay. But then there are parking lots, and then there are parking lots. This is the parking lot we spoke about earlier. That's behind Galesburg High School. It's sort of between, directly behind the science building and the library addition.
Whitehall.
And then Whitehall, between there. Who's going to use it? Well, we have more staff there, and this massive parking lot and the one, it wraps around, there's parking after the berm, the growing area outside what had been the area vocational center. There's parking out there, and then there will, once we finish the, what used to be the runway, you can see grass along the side, and then the parking bumpers are going to limit the size of that. We park in there, and we'll have over 250 spots available for combined areas. 259, I think I heard. So it really is big. And the nice thing I'm like, and thank you for designing this, it's a parking lot that also will have green spaces throughout it. It not only breaks it up physically, but it's also better for the world in which we have. And here is our Performing Arts Center with the majority of the scaffolding gone. So we're told it will be ready for the beginning of the school year. All the issues about up here we have these wooden pieces that make this lovely arch up from the stage, and it continues up into the ceiling, the same dark wood. It's lovely, and it goes into a dark gray finish on the ceiling. It's a very classic look, and it's coming in. We're told we're going to start installing seats when next week. So things are definitely coming together there. When that's finished, the new curtains will be hung as well, and then the new surface, the new floor for the entire area. That's coming on. And as you can see in this corner here, the enclosure for the pit, the replacement of the pit it's much larger than I had assumed when I was there now. It is coming together nicely. Last of our pictures on Amy? Oh no. Oh, the courtyard at GHS, which hopefully will be used as our 712 students use it. There's the patio here is right outside the windows from the commons. And it's been extended. It goes the entire width of where common grounds is. And then there'll be a concrete path that leads through it. It should be, hopefully, we'll see people in it. At this point, we don't have any plans for the other courtyard, correct?
Not at this time.
Not this time. Moving forward, it does need attention. Oh, and then the preschool site. We have, anyone who drives down Fremont Street has seen that the playground, even though we're not going to be there until next year, has been built out earlier because of funding issues. And here we have, it has a large trike trail that goes around and then goes up a hill to these slides and then comes back down around. You can't see it here, but that is a large shading sail that's connected at these 3 points. This picture shows it at that plane, so you don't see it, but it is there to generate shade for it. The dark areas along the edge are for natural planting. Yes, that is, and the gray area here that's there is where the unnatural grass will be, the all-weather surface. So it should be an all-weather playground space. Along this wall, if you go past there now, they're working on cutting through the windows for the classrooms, and they'll punch out the holes. Because inside this corner is the indoor play space. It's coming along real nice. And here's another picture, the other end of the playground. And there's the slide built into the hill and all the climbing features. Just to give you an idea what's happening here. This wide sidewalk here, there will be timbers going up here, a roof that'll totally cover this walkway here for students. Be able to get through the cloudy weather. It's really coming along really well. And the inside is working nicely. Imagine when you get people in the air conditioned space, they work faster. Maybe that's it. And here's the turf, the AstroTurf, whatever it's called now, is down. So it's a good space, and there will be a fence going up. These are being cut down lower, and then a fence is going in on the north side. But this gives a very nice picture of the the grade changes in the playground. And here at the inside, I wrote Brian an email about this last week, right? I said it's really nice. There's a little whimsy here. What we have here is there's going to be 10 classrooms, and classrooms are sort of grouped together next to each other, so they share some pipes and things like that. In the middle area here is the teach and work area and the pull-out area for therapies if necessary. And on either side, with these slanted roofs, are these the bathrooms that are accessible from the classroom. So each classroom will have their own bathroom. But from the hallway, this is the finished surface. There'll be things hanging there and decorative items. But that white is the color. So there'll be lots of light in that space because of that. And then we have these the bathrooms are not just blocks, they're little rooms from the outside. It should look real interesting. I'm excited to see his more walls go up. Is there another one? Nope. And that's what we have going on in terms of the buildings here in the district. Exciting.
Thank you, Member Lamb. I have a few questions. First, I'd like to say I appreciate the funding opportunities that allowed us to get Bright Futures Playground set up at Issues Opportunities. Let's reword that in a positive framework there. But they're up, and we're not going to be using it right until
A year.
So we've got plans in place.
To keep it locked.
Well, not to keep it locked, but to make sure it's maintained.
Yes.
And then going back to the parking lot,
Yes.
which is, yes, on the north side of the school behind the science wing, but for those who might have also used that as a pseudo parking place when they wanted to go in the backside of field gym, that gives you a different frame of reference. The building that was there next to Field would have been the old wrestling room, which is no longer the wrestling practice room. So I just want to bring that back up. We have a plan for where we're putting the wrestling team since they've been displaced.
Right now, they're
Yeah. So the varsity's in the Gale cafeteria, and then we're going to take the library and turn that into the junior high, so they can actually be right next to each other. So they can be together and be separate. So Livelock and I have been talking about different spaces that we potentially use for a locker room type area, but there's enough space. They're actually in there now. They've been in there since the spring. So we've just kind of been trial and error and going through. So far that's our short term home. So
Yes, it could be that as a long term. We have made a decision how to deal with the Gale property. But and that building, I didn't reference that. The building where the wrestling room was and weight room prior to that is the 7-8 shop. And that is finished except for the equipment being set up. And the paint job makes it look nice. It's just a big old room. So it should work well for that function. And do we have a time frame where that equipment's going to be set up?
before school starts, but I don't know.
Who does that?
5 weeks.
Our staff's going to do that.
I think I'm okay with Gale being the short term for the wrestling, but you've got football, that has the field house and semi-new things, and you've got basketball that's got brand new locker rooms, girls and boys, and so, if Gale ends up being long term, I think we have to think about what that means.
Well, yeah, so there's, at this moment in time, there's two immediate options. One is fixing the Gale. That would cost, some money, obviously, with that. Anything can cost money. The other thing that we've at least begun discussing, we're not in any place to sit here and keep plans or anything like that, but is to perhaps add on to the north side of Whitehall, that they have a dedicated space. In addition to some other spaces we can put. But we're very well aware we need to give wrestling a permanent
now done a facelift or more than a facelift, I think, what we're doing the white call. Of course, I don't know if that addresses the pool, but I mean, so I just want to make sure that we're keeping things on our radar.
So we, as a building committee, to Dr. Essel's point, I put out, swimming needs to, while we're in there, the wrestling, batting cages, all those. So we have, to Dr. Essel's point, we've explored what ifs, and to the north side of Wycall is kind of where our head is down the road, and it would accommodate exactly what you're talking. Wrestling have their own space, it's theirs, it's all the equipment, put cardio in there, put batting cages, softball and baseball on the north side, add concessions and seating and swimming. So we've vetted that hey, that's something we need to put on our radar for coming to your point, Tiana, on making sure everything's equitable and it would also put everything on one campus. It would put everything in one area, so we're not we got clear over the gate and those things. So, yeah, we have started that thought process.
You mentioned Whitehall. I went in today to see if the floor was down. It wasn't full.
It wasn't down. I thought this is great. I saw, I was walking through, that the chairs for the Performing Arts Center came from China. All the flooring, we finally have a product that's made in America. And I look at it, that's from Luxembourg.
No, I didn't know anything came from it.
Okay. Moving on, need a motion to consider approval of a facility use agreement revisions.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Ham.
Okay, so last month, I presented the board with some information about some changes to our facility use agreement that we were recommending in terms of increased fees, reducing the categories so that it was just a little simpler and a little more streamlined. And really the one issue we still had outstanding was involving category 2 organizations, which we have a few organizations that use our facilities quite a bit. We don't have intergovernmental agreements with them, but they do benefit our students directly. So on July 1st, Member Phelps and Mr. Matthews and I were able to meet regarding the category 2 entities, and I think we came up with a potential good solution that we're recommending that the board approve tonight, which is in those category 2, we would identify Galesburg JFL, Future Streaks basketball for boys and girls, and then Junior Streaks baseball as having a flat $500 annual fee for those organizations. They would still pay for weekend and holiday custodial charges, but they would not be paying the hourly rate that category 3 and category 4 entities would be paying. So other than that, everything is pretty much the same as presented last month. We will have a new facility use system where people will be able to go online and easily rent and upload their documents so that we have all their certificates of insurance and everything right on the spot. And then it's a common calendar so everyone in the district can see what facilities are being used by what groups and entities, both inter-district groups and external groups. Does anyone have any questions about the guidelines or fees for category 2?
In the category 2, were those fees being paid by those entities before now?
No. They were in kind of a gray area and we were waiting to get the facilities done so that we can have this conversation. They should have been charged, but because there was this gray area, they were all of our students and they were being coached by our staff, yet they're outside entities that hold their own accounts. It was kind of a strange area and we weren't exactly sure how to charge them, so we did not charge them.
Do they carry their own insurance?
They do, and they hold their own accounts outside of the district.
So they pay a $500 annual fee, and then there will be charges on the weekend, is that correct?
Just for custodial services.
So with this new implemented option for these teams, do we know that they'll be able to afford these things, given that it comes from the parents that pay for them to enter these sports? Is that a fee that's gonna be essentially handed off? How's this gonna work?
Well, I've been in contact with the groups that something was coming, and I was trying to find an area that would be doable for all the parties involved. I am a parent of Future Streaks and coach for 3 years. So a $500 fee for that whole organization, I think is pretty fair request, I guess. And yes, it'll be passed on to the kids, to the parents, whether it's, break it down, we've got 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, it starts to become pretty minimal once you break it up. So, but they were already paying for the custodial costs for the weekends as needed. So that was something that was already being taken care of. It's just an additional one-time fee for the use of the facilities.
Okay, so JFL covers, I'm trying to remember, I think you played JFL, but that was a few years ago. That is 4th, 5th?
I think it's 3rd, 4th.
3rd.
First and sixth.
Okay, so 1st through 6th. Okay.
1st through 6th.
And then Future Streaks, are there the same amount of teams for boys and girls, or is that just the Future Streaks is one entity?
Future Streaks is one entity.
Okay, so it will be essentially 1,500, right? Galesburg, JFL, Future Streaks, and then Junior Streaks?
Yes. 3 different entities, $500.
So you're not having like boys, Future Streaks pay by, girls, Future Streaks pay by, it's just all one
It was just
okay.
it was the group. Yes. The entity. Yes.
Eric, if we would charge them per the chart that we've approved for other agencies, how much would it have run?
Upwards.
So we had Eric give us kind of the hours that they would pay the billing for that, and one of those was like 280 hours, and if you took the amount, it was going to be $16,000. So I mean, it was a big number, and we realized we're not in this to make money, but we felt a lot of these are our future athletes that will be coming through Galesburg through the 7-8 build or 7-12 building. It's a lot of our people coaching. We just felt it was just a fair and equitable number so they got some skin in the game. Because they are using our facilities, our janitors are cleaning up after them and such. So that's the way we looked at it. We're not in it to make, it was a huge number. It was a big number, and we knew they couldn't afford it. And that's not what we want. People to use our facilities.
So I appreciate where this is landed. I think the other questions that I still have beyond fees has always been use and when they're using, because there are at points in the year a lot of those teams using a lot of our spaces, and I feel like we have reduced the number of spaces in some capacity maybe, and so I would just want to be cognizant that as we build this relationship and continue this relationship, I shouldn't say build, continue this relationship, that these entities also know, regardless if they work for or with, in collaboration with, however we want to say it, coaches of major teams, that varsity sports from other sports would still and should still have preference over gyms, which sometimes can be difficult because you're working with third graders and you don't want them practicing at 8 o'clock at night. However, these are also varsity spaces. So there's going to have to be some careful maneuvering done with scheduling and use of space. And I just want that to be on our radar too.
Absolutely. And I thank members of Montez for putting that on my radar when I got here. And I think Mr. Matthews done a commendable job of trying to make sure we prioritize those. That's something we're going to have to balance, because you bring up a great point that you don't want little kids staying out super late, but our varsity teams should have precedent. Because their time left with us is very limited. So it's a balance. But we still do use the Lombard space too, so that the only gym we're looking at this point is the old Churchill gym. But we made Whitehall so much better.
Yeah, since I've been here, we've never used Whitehall because it hasn't been safe. The guys would use it, and then we would use it for future streets. But so yeah, we're actually we're gaining back a facility that will actually be basically brand new. So that will be exciting, and it's on campus.
It really looks nice.
So that's very promising. I'm all with on that as well.
Why is the not-for-profit more than just a regular community rental fee? The whole yellow thing, facility rental fee. So if I were to rent the main commons, it's $100 if I'm regular, but if I'm not-for-profit, it's $200. Why are they not the same? They're the same across the board everywhere else, except.
That is what, it shouldn't be that way. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
that
should be the other way around.
It should be the other way around.
So the not-for-profit should be cheaper than the
Yes,
regular.
it's a 50% discount for the not-for-profit.
I'm thinking,
Yes.
what the heck?
Okay.
Great cash.
Yeah, it's that way all the way across, isn't it?
It's just a
Like
better
every other
split.
column is the exact same.
Yes, so no, they get a 50% discount for the not-for-profit.
So like, okay, one of the dance teams rented Lombard, they will pay, they'll pay $200 an hour Friday night when they have rehearsal and all day Saturday. Is that how that works? That's like $5,000 to have a dance rehearsal, just to host it. Cause they have, I'm just saying, that's a lot of money for a little dance studio to have a dance recital at Lombard, when I know that they took it over this past spring. I don't know, I just think that that's a lot of money, but. $200 an hour is a lot of money. That's just to rent it, that's not the, on top of the supervisor custodial technology fee you also have to pay. I know that's why my tumbling fee does not come to Guilford, because they charge too much.
Well, and actually, so we compared fees, and that's all in the packet of other area schools in the Western Big Six, and also like Knoxville, and Knoxville's actually putting a $500 minimum, whether you rent it an hour, or, they're really substantially increasing their fees, so ours will actually be less expensive than Knoxville next year. And we were less expensive than Dunlap and some of the city schools, so this is pretty competitive for the research that we did, and all of that information's in there. And just so that you know what we'll do with the revenues from our facility rentals, I'm putting that, I'm sure you've heard me talk about Q accounts, so we're putting that in a revenue enhancement Q account, and that will help us when we need to do some of the routine maintenance that unfortunately was put off for many years, and that allowed some of our facilities to get to the condition that they were in, that we will have this revenue stream that we're then just putting those dollars back into the facilities that are rented. So it won't go back into general revenue.
Allison?
Rodriguez? Aye. Trippy?
Aye.
Hernandez?
Aye.
Weston?
No.
Lyon?
Yes.
Elvis?
Alright.
Okay. Next, need a motion to consider approval of the terrazzo floor refurbish.
So moved.
So, we have one quote, and we looked for other quotes, but could not find any other entity to do waxed over for years, and they're dingy and dirty next year. So there's over 21,000 square feet of terrazzo. And so the quote you see in front of you is high. I mean, it's a lot, but that equates to about $5.90 a square foot. If we were to floor that with the flooring that we've been using all over the high school, that's about $9 a square foot. So it's actually a less expensive option. What they basically do is come in and strip the floor down, and then apply a buffing polish to it, and then a seal coat. And then after that, our maintenance folks could do that ongoing after that. We would never wax the floors again. And the floors will look exponentially better. And all you have to do is dry mop them the rest of the time. So it really will, in the long run, reduce our labor in those areas, plus the visual attractiveness of them. Because right now, those terrazzo floors don't look very good at all. This quote, they won't be able, if approved tonight, they won't be able to get it done before school starts, but by the middle of the year, all of it will be done. It would look fantastic. It would look like they're brand new. So it's all the stone, it's all the green, and so right outside of the commons, and then going down the hallways on both floors. And then all the way, so on the first floor where you see it is basically going into south doors all the way out to West Circle Drive. I mean, all of that's terrazzo. So it's our very public spaces that right now just look dingy because they are, because it's been waxed over for so many years.
Will this fix by the old trophy case down by the field gym? There's a grade change there. Will that fix that?
No, this is just cleaning them. This doesn't include any mud jacking or anything else there. We've investigated how to fix that floor for months and have never really come up with a great solution. There's a little bit of a tripping hazard there for sure.
Yeah.
So while we're in there, shouldn't we investigate that? Because
we have, and just so you know, this process wouldn't be aided or diminished if that floor were level or not. I mean, they're just going to come in and do what they do. It's an all topical work. The work we need to do to raise that floor up or whatever we do, we'd have to get into the tunnel and do some work there to bring that up. But we've never found any solution that we felt really great about. Because we're not really 100% certain what caused it. Is that fairly?
Yeah, I think the best guess right now is where it's lower is that in the tunnel, so it probably settled at some point after the construction back in the 60s.
Right.
But
it's right at the joint where the tunnel meets the dirt.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably a backfill issue back then. So, you try to go with mud jacking underneath, you may raise it up, but you might also cause other issues with hydraulic pressure on the tunnel walls and other things. So, that's what we came up with some options. None of them were great.
Right.
Not that would solve it 100%. So.
Well, and anybody that has walked down that hallway to the north, you've seen the cracking on the east wall. That and the way the floor settled. I mean, that building settled crookedly decades ago, and that was all part and parcel of that issue. So it's just at least the cure might be more damaging than just leaving it alone.
Allison? Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
yes.
Need a motion to consider approval of the sideless floor, epoxy painting bid specs.
So moved.
All right, so tonight we're bringing forward bid specs for epoxy painting of interior common areas in Silas. We did a tour of
Silas with Mr. Bradburn at the end of the school year. And when we had originally painted, and I say we, was nobody on this board, it was long before any of us were here, they decided to put a flat paint on the walls in the hallway areas, which is not a good solution, obviously with students touching and running hands against the walls. So there's really no way to scrub or to clean those walls. It's really been an issue since a year after we took possession of the building that we just have a lot of difficulty keeping that clean. And they've actually been painted by our staff one time already, and it's still, I mean, it's almost gray black from where the hands are running across. So we had spoken to Monique Taylor from Leggett about some possible solutions that other schools have used, and she's recommending using an epoxy paint, which is a little trickier, it's a little more difficult to put on. That's why our staff could not do that, and going out for bid to be able to put that paint on, which basically makes it a washable surface at that point. So that we do this, we do it one time, and hopefully it's going to last for many, many years to come. So this is just approving the specs. The bids will be due at the end of the month, and then the board can consider the bids that come in. This work would be done after school started during second shift. So that's part of the spec, so it wouldn't interrupt the school day, but it would be completed this fall.
Brian, do you have this in other schools? And if so, how's it hold up and work and all that stuff?
Yeah, typically, the majority of any bathroom that we're painting that doesn't have tile would have epoxy paint in it so that it's washable and you can hose it down and not have any problems with the chip behind it. So, I want to say that we've done it in a couple of corridors at King. I'm not sure if we did it at Steel. I'm pretty confident we did it at King, in the new addition corridor. So it is, I mean, it's a trade-off. A lot of schools are trying to get away from the block walls, even though they're really durable, and go to gyp. And usually in grade schools, we would do the epoxy paint for at least the first 8 feet, if not the whole wall, to be able to wash it down. I mean, I walked through Silas. I actually walked through Steel the other day, and it's similar. It really needs, it needs to be wiped down on a regular basis because kids are book bags and hands and things like that.
Allison?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Need a motion to consider approval of Steel Elementary added sidewalk change.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, in front of you, you have a change order request tonight from Hine Construction. Last year, as we got back to school and regular and face-to-face school days, one of the issues that the principal at Steel, Mrs. Graves, had approached us about is that our students that are coming from neighborhoods to the south of the school, the sidewalk ends and they were forced to cross over that queuing line where the parents drop off for school in the morning. And so kids were in essence crossing in traffic, and it was just kind of a dangerous situation for them to be able to get a little further north in order to hit the sidewalks. So we've kind of been going back and forth, and the original change order that we had for the first draft of this was $60,000 because of the grading changes that would need to occur to run the sidewalk on the fence line to the east side of the drive lane. So we met a couple weeks ago at the location and came up with a second alternative. You have the sketch in front of you where we would be coming right off where the property line is, right by the solar fields, heading west, and then intersecting with the basketball court. So all of those students that are coming from homes and neighborhoods to the south of Steel would then be able to safely get onto the playground in the morning. So we are requesting that the board approve that change order, and the work will be done by the time school starts.
Well, when it was first requested by Ms. Graves, she thought it was very important that trusted children to her, so I guess this is the right thing to do.
And I'm aware of the traffic there, they do have to cross multiple areas for cars to go through, I think that's, so, it'd be a good idea. Allison?
Travis?
Aye.
Ryan?
Yes.
Phillips?
Aye.
Rodriguez? Aye. Kirby?
Aye.
Hessam? Aye.
Okay, need a motion to consider approval of the final cleaning award recommendation.
Seven award.
All right, Russell Construction has provided a document tonight, it's from Mr. Marwa, regarding the final bids for cleaning for both, steel and for the high school. So we are recommending that the board approve, $11,498 for, that would include the band and choir rooms and the performing arts center. $6,715 for the steel classroom remodel, which is all of the corridors, and then pods A, B, and C. And then Peterson window cleaning for all the interior and exterior of the junior high at $13,300, and then steel for $1,740 for interior and exterior.
A comment I'll make is I pose that this is on the window cleaning, this is inside and outside.
Correct.
And it's all windows, so it's all, except at the high school, the windows clear to the top of the gymnasium were not included in this. But everything else, the fronts, the new installs, everything. So, and to my knowledge, they've never been cleaned since I've known the new install from the original remodel. I don't think they've ever been washed.
I'm not sure they were even, there was a final cleaning in 2015 after construction was over.
Right.
And the contract for this, I know we don't, who makes sure they clean to the specifications you want?
That's not good, Russell.
That would be on Russell, and the contract is clear on the quality of work that we expect.
Yes, and then we do punch lists or a final walkthrough of cleaning like we do when any area is turned over to us.
Yeah, I know, I wouldn't want to do that.
Another comment is Peterson window cleaning is local, so that was one reason, and I've seen their work, and so they're more than capable of doing it.
Okay, Allison?
Travis? Aye. Ryan?
Yes.
Phillips?
Aye.
Rodriguez? Aye. Kirby?
Aye.
Hessam?
Okay. Need a motion to consider approval of press policies. This is the second reading.
So moved.
There were no recommended changes from last month.
Allison?
Ryan?
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Rodriguez? Aye. Kirby?
Aye.
Hessam? Travis? Aye.
Okay, I'm gonna skip B for now and move on to C. And this is a discussion on the Skyward attendance kiosk station. Okay. The same.
Okay, did we want to just go over the quote, or did you wanna show?
We've got the videos up there ready.
Please.
Please.
I'd like to see it.
There's two different types, so we'll just show both. This one is the turning kiosk and one is the attendance.
Yeah, they're not.
Schools or district faces. Could technology help you solve it? Let's take a look at how technology has helped this school.
We realized that our kids were getting late to class, they were missing learning time. We said, well, what if we give students the power to go where they need help, as opposed to where we think that they need to go? When a student is late for class, either student, they come up and they just punch in the student ID number, and they have a pass to our class. So we've been using devices similar to this for about 5 years. We went to the target kiosk at the beginning of this year, working with Skyward and Sai. We implemented target kiosk this year. and you put the information right into Skyward, it really has cut down a lot of the work. We wanted to set this up so they could be free to go, but yet when their parent called and said, I need Johnny, we know exactly where they are. We have one in every classroom. They just come in, just their lunch number or their ID, and they just punch it in, and that records the location and the time as where they check in. It really has expanded as people have seen the vision of what it can do. So now we're using it for lunch, we use it for different events, dances, and those kind of things. The majority of students that use it understand that we're doing this for their benefit. We try to explain to them that this is to give them more opportunity within the school. In real life, you are responsible for yourself. When you go to a job, you sign in, so you make sure you get paid. We want to free up our students and our teachers to go about the business of learning, and new technology changes have helped us do that. We look at how we utilize the things that we have more, and as we look at Skyward, we see a lot of pieces that are there that we're using. Could we squeeze more value out of that? We feel like we've been able to do that.
The cash flow and the revenue aspect of a school is the attendance, which is why it's so critical wherever state you're in. The attendance, that's how you get funded. There are consequences to making bad decisions. Schools teach that too. When a student figures out that they're at 9 parties, students go, whoa, my mom and dad are getting the same text at the same time I am. So you shape behavior. The student has that responsibility, and the parent has the visibility to enforce that.
If a parent has asked their child to go to get additional help in math, and they sign in, it marks them present with the math teacher. And that comes across the parent's screen, so they know, hey, I have to go to math today to play hall, why didn't you go there?
Security is one of their top goals. By having positive attendance, you actually have a mechanism to see who's in what classroom at what period of time. Because if there is ever an emergency, that is the most valuable piece of information there is to people that are going to come in and try to resolve whatever situation is.
If we would have to evacuate the building and then reconvene at another point, we would bring over laptops and then have all the students sign in using positive attendance.
But we know still, from a security standpoint, who's safe and who isn't. Pretty powerful information to have. That information really can save lives.
When you picture classroom attendance, what do you think of? Today I'm at Nicolay High School in Glendale, Wisconsin.
Amy.
Nicolay uses positive attendance instead of traditional negative
Here they are,
to
it's our
teach
hallway.
students.
We'll see if
The
you
school
decide to
has
show
found
up.
this innovative
Alex,
approach
you
to
came
be
to
highly
us. Good to
beneficial.
see you. Hey, Ron, always a pleasure. All right, now on to the
place.
The good news is,
Assigned time, and they're on the roster for that. And if they're not in that room, we really don't know where they are. Positive attendance, we account for the student where they show up. So they don't necessarily have to be on a roster for us. If they come into the library, if they come into a study hall, we know where the student is at. Our students use the resource period to have access to teachers for additional help. That's a period that students have every day where they would be able to go and see the interventionist and be able to get the help with the math or the reading. They have to go somewhere, but we don't know where they're going to go until they actually get there. And that's where positive attendance is so awesome. We use a barcode reader. Students who have their IDs with them, we're able to scan in as many as 90 students in a silent reading area or study hall area. And we still get the full 35-minute resource period. This is a device that stands independent of a teacher's computer. Students would be able to enter their ID card. They'd be able to use a biometric like a thumbprint. This device is tied to this classroom, so again, we would know exactly where a student was at when they scanned in and fully remove the teacher from the attendance perspective. This is also what you see being put on school buses and so on, because it has wireless technology. The school buses have Wi-Fi on, and so they're able to communicate in real time with the Skyward Student Information System. These devices, I think, are really the future. The teachers basically say they have more time in the classroom, which is huge. So you say 5 to 10 minutes every single day, 8 hours a day. Basically, we have the ability to put about a month's worth of instruction into a student without that teacher working a minute of overtime.
positive attendance shows that technology can truly impact any aspect of education.
provided for you, this quantity.
What are we looking to buy? They showed multiple products between the tardy piece or the piece in the classrooms.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Alright, so the first quote was for the attendance barcoding system. So these would be the devices that would go into the classroom. Students would scan them to prove that they were in attendance. We had a quote for 100, which was an original quote, the quantity that they had from a couple years ago when we researched this system. We would now need approximately 200 to cover all of the rooms and all of the areas. So we would be looking at $142,800 for just the in-class attendance system. And then for the tardy kiosks, which is where if a student was tardy, they would have to go to another kiosk area. We would need approximately 5 of those throughout the school, which we have also a manpower issue of who would be manning those kiosks. So I don't know if we would have to hire additional staff in order to be at those, but we would need approximately 5, and we would be looking at $19,320. We also would be looking at approximately $10,000 in training costs for Skyward, because they have to train staff and secretarial staff to do that. So we're looking at probably a total of investment of $172,120.
Why use the word investment?
Just purchasing the devices.
And that's just for the 7-12.
That's
So how many students will we have in the 7-12 building?
1,800.
Next year, 1,800.
So a student walks into class, they do a check-in process as we're envisioning.
Well,
Correct?
That's not what she's doing, that's what we asked.
Yeah, I'm just providing information
Okay,
on how the system works.
I heard. But does it take instructional time away, or do they do it as they walk in then?
So they would do it as they walked in.
They would swipe their card or into their ID number. So the teachers.
Kind of like taking attendance.
When you show up at
Kind of like when you show up at the front door and you swipe your key at the badge. Same concept. But in the classroom.
How does the teacher know if a student doesn't swipe?
They would not know that. So attendance would get that, and then a parent would get a notification that the teacher wouldn't necessarily. The other challenge with this is that a student can easily come in, swipe, put in their number,
Walk out the door.
and walk out the door and not be in attendance.
Isn't that what our staff is supervising?
They wouldn't be responsible for attendance.
No. They wouldn't be responsible for tracking attendance, but that doesn't negate your responsibility as the adult in the classroom to know who's in your classroom.
It would be the same as a kid walking in with his lanyard and sitting there and getting up and walking out, right?
It could.
Because the teacher would mark him here, and then he'd get mad and he'd walk out, so he's still here. Because the teacher marked him here.
I would hope that staff would respond as soon as getting up and
We
walking
would
out.
hope so. The same way with swiping or wearing a lanyard.
So, yeah, the potential benefit of the attendance kiosk would be that you could take staff time away from having to police. One of the things is because of the summertime, I would love to be able to talk to some folks up that use this, and I have not yet. The other thing I'm not sure about is whenever you get to that, they have a swipe card like that. I don't know if ours don't have that, so I'm just saying that's something else we might have to change for our card would be.
No, they have the ability to scan a barcode.
That do they?
Yeah.
Oh, they got the little. There's a different
There's
area.
a light at the
so
bottom
you
to
can use
scan
that thing.
a barcode.
I have a question. So when a teacher takes attendance, do they take attendance on a computer?
Yeah.
So like that automatically goes just straight to the office?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just asking, like that's how it happens.
Yeah.
It's all part of the
It's not like they write on a piece of paper, check, okay. Okay, they enter it into the computer when the child comes in.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm looking at the audience, so I'm sorry. Because they haven't been in school in a while. So, do teachers enter attendance in real time, or do they take it and then at some point in the period of the class time, are they entering it when students are working on something and they have a free moment to enter it in?
I
No
would
one
say
wants
that
to answer that question.
that may depend upon the teacher. It's always after the final bell. It's not during passing period, which is exactly what she's saying. In the passing period, I can swipe in and walk out.
Yeah.
And then I'm not there after the bell. The teacher doesn't know if I swiped or not, so they're not counting me absent or present. So how is my responsibility to know? Well, I was also out in the hall watching hall duty.
My other question would be, what about tardies that you have kids walking quite a distance to get to the ABC? What happens when they get there right at the bell, but then they're swiping in because there's going to be a line? How does that mark them for your attendance policy and tardy policy?
They would have to go to one of the tardy kiosks, which is that second system.
So
that
we're
we have to have located
You're gonna
throughout the
lose
building.
instructional time because they're gonna take 5 minutes to get cleared to GABC, then they're gonna wait in a line,
And then they're gonna be tardy, so now they're gonna have to leave that line, go scan in elsewhere, and then come back to pause for instructional minutes.
Unless we have the ability with Skyward to set what that tardy time is. Correct.
We do.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if class starts at 9, we set the tardy time at 9:05, so that if there is by chance a line of students swiping when they're coming in the door, they're not marked tardy yet.
We could set those parameters. So yeah, so for a recap, we were asked to provide the information, and I know there are other products out there, but the important thing is it has to talk to Skyward. And so that's why we landed on this one, because we know it does, because Skyward sells it. So that's why we landed on this one. As I said last month, we saw a different one when we were in Chicago. But this does have the capability to use your ID as you were talking about, to set user IDs. I think it's definitely worth investigating further. I wouldn't want to just jump in and say it's a good idea.
Well, it's not just incentivizing the IDs, but what I have heard as part of the reasoning for having the IDs is to teach responsibility. And you heard one of the administrators in the video say, this starts to put the onus and responsibility on a student to understand that when you move into an employment area, this is something that you're going to be doing. You are responsible for getting paid. You're not paid if you don't clock in. For some jobs, not all. Right? And so it's also life lesson. I don't know why I got feedback either.
Well, also in our last conversation, I mean, the biggest concern was safety, and I mean, in that video, they talked about the safety portion also. So I think a lot of what we were talking about last time was really answered in this video. Whether it's this particular system or not, the responsibility is put back on those students and what they need to do, and it takes that teacher, for the most part, out of the equation of, do you have this, do I need to do this, and goes back to the student. And even secretaries, they're not wasting as much time printing IDs, etc. So if we're talking about the buy-in portion, they're utilizing their codes, they're utilizing their IDs to swipe, and the parents now are more involved because you know whether or not your child is or isn't in potential class. I mean, I think while we might have some issues with attendance at times, what would be the frequency and likelihood that someone's going to clock in and then just leave class on a regular basis? How often is that truthfully happening? Is it half the classes? Every time?
What I could see happening is, if I'm going to skip class today, I might give my card to John, and then you have two students, doing a double swipe. That'd be one.
I think we're taking a little bit too deeply with that portion of it. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But again, the biggest concern last conversation was safety. In this video, it answered a lot of things that were brought to the table last time as far as safety was concerned, buy-in, and responsibility back on the student.
As far as safety, I believe this is more of an attendance product as opposed to a safety product. It really doesn't address who is in our building. It addresses where the students are at once once they're in the classrooms, we need to identify, what students in classroom 160, then we can pull that up. But it certainly doesn't help us with immediate identification of who belongs, in what areas or not.
If you're having to punch in your own code, only you would know that code. I mean,
What
I
about
could
people that
memorize someone else. I wouldn't have the capacity to memorize someone else's code.
Oh, I can almost guarantee.
I think we're thinking.
I think as a police officer, I've stopped people that memorize other people's names and dates of birth.
I think we're trying to criminalize children a little bit too
I
much.
have no intent
And that's
for that, but I
unfortunate.
am concerned about the safety of the students, and I think it's important to identify who belongs in the school and who doesn't. And, again, this product, to me, appears to be more of an attendance product as opposed to a school safety product.
I will respectfully disagree on that.
Dr. Aslan,
Yes.
can I ask you to stand up? What does his lanyard say? No. He had to turn it around.
It doesn't say anything. We know who he is. What if he didn't have the lanyard on and he had a seizure? We don't know who he is. And we're gonna have 600 more children in that school that a lot of people don't know who they are.
What did we do before we had lanyards?
You had ID cards that you kept in your back pocket when you walked through the lunch line to swipe it.
Like, we literally went generations without wearing the lanyard. I still had my ID on me. You were still able to figure out who I was.
I don't want to stifle the conversation, but I also want to make sure that we're focusing on the
Yeah,
attendance kiosk thing. So I guess if we want to take this to the next step, I'll be the first to tell you I don't really see the value in the tardy stations. I just don't. I don't know what that really does for us. And maybe it's just because I don't get it. I can see where the attendance, if it's used right, and there's all the supervision. I mean, I can see where that has value. I don't really. Someone would have to explain to me what the tardy thing does over that. If you come in and you do this thing and it's late, to me there's got to be integrated something. That just seems like an unnecessary step to me. If we are interested in going to the next step with the attendance kiosk, I would ask that we just see if we can do it on a pilot basis. I'd like to try it in a couple of classrooms. I can see the good and the bad in both of them. I get nervous whenever we start taking the human element out of things. And maybe this doesn't do that. I feel like there's a potential for it. And I wouldn't want to just jump in with both feet just because, if it was $2,000, I'd be like, yeah, it's worth a shot. But, it's a lot more than that.
I think each of these units is overpriced. Look what a credit card scanner costs. Terminal cost, this is twice as expensive. And it's basically collecting the same data. Except it's not sending the MasterCard, it's sending it to your in-house computer, and it's over twice the price. They got you here. If we're interested, we look at other vendors for such hardware.
Well, as Dr. Aslan said, we looked at this hardware because it integrates with the system that we currently use. And we're sitting here balking at $170,000 when we just spent, $50 million renovating our entire district. I'm just being facetious, but right.
See, I'm not balking so much as not sure what the value is. So I really think that teachers should take attendance.
Why?
Because they have to look around their class and pay attention to who's there.
Don't they have to do that as they teach?
I sure hope so.
I mean, if I'm engaged in my classroom, then during the first few weeks of the term, much like I do, I'm getting to know the students in my classroom. I'm engaging them in conversation. So I know who physically should be in my space. Then, when they're not there, I don't take attendance every day. Of course, it's college, so, they're paying to be there, not me. But I recognize who's not there. I recognize who's not participating in the discussion. And I'm making notes on my paper. Jimmy didn't talk today. Sue didn't show up. But I didn't take a formal attendance because I know the students in my classroom. What it sounded like to me on this video is that by allowing our students to have a purpose in their mind, to have this plastic card in their hand on their person so that we can identify them in case of an emergency, they're responsible for saying, I'm here, by swiping the card on the way in the door. Therefore alleviating the 10 minutes at the beginning of the class where a teacher is sitting at their desk in front of their computer, physically marking in the system who is or isn't there. I don't know how long it takes. I don't know who's adept at Skyward. I don't know if they're even doing it at the beginning of the classroom or if they are also having a piece of paper and they're check marking who's there. And then when the class is engaged in a discussion, they're going into Skyward and say, Jimmy, Sue, John are here, Dakota, Dylan aren't. So unless we know all of our teachers are uniformly inputting attendance in the first 5 minutes of their class, then taking attendance, maybe these are the questions we need to be asking, but I would prefer not to be in those weeds. I would prefer to say, how are we using technology, a system that we have had for decades, and not made great use out of all of the things that therein lie in that technology, and say, how could we cut back on teacher time in those ways? Also giving students responsibility and a reason in their mind to have this plastic card so that we do know when an emergency hits, they're going to have it on their person. That's what I'm saying.
I would like us to move forward.
Okay, thank you. So I was going to say, so would you like us to take the next step and see if we can pilot it, what it would be, if they would give us, I would assume, I hate to assume, but I would assume that they would give us or loan us a few to be able to give them the one in this corner, one in this corner, one in this corner, whatever, and then try it for compare back and forth, and be able to come in here and say, we found these problems, these are great, these are
The integration factor, which I will have to get prices on that because I think we'll have to.
This is
Like
a software upgrade.
Yes, it is a software upgrade. So unfortunately, I think if they upgrade us, we are going to have significant fees regardless if we move forward with the prices. But we can get with our Skyward rep this week and kind of get those prices. But maybe before we do that, I think it could be several $1,000s to even run the pilot because of the software aspect.
Well, usually when you buy software, you get X number of months free to try something out.
You said we're too long for that.
We're
past our
I mean, there's also, in this proposal, there's a licensing fee for their software. And it shows here that, are we on Skyward version 2.0?
And we're on the latest version of Skyward.
Okay, that's the one that this says on their website they integrate, but which they integrate.
Yeah, so just so you know, there's another update. They're totally revamping their system, something called Q. Because right now we have Skyward Financial and Skyward Student. They're two different things. Okay. Same company, but they're completely different. Now I log in one time. But this will put it together.
QM,
as they call it, Q. So that's part of this calculus as well. We have to know how that integrates. That's just the reality.
I would be interested from the front office people at the high school to know how much of their day is spent working on tardies and whether or not a tardy kiosk up at the front would be worth it or not, or if we would have to buy more than one.
Well, just from being in the high school a lot and being a former high school principal, I worry about a tardy kiosk where if you have let's say the child's name is Maury, and Maury's a habitual tardy student, they go to that kiosk and then where are they going? I mean, if you're going to a place that's not supervised completely from point A to point B, I feel like we might be defeating our, and maybe we're not. I just think there's potential there. Right, absolutely. But at the same time, I mean, how many students is this into? I don't know. I'm just saying there's some unanswered questions. I'm not sure.
So would we be required to change some cumulative?
Everybody will be eventually, yeah.
But it's quite different, so we've kind of pushed back on not moving forward.
It's a web-based product.
It's a web-based part, but the platform is, and the interface is entirely different. So it's going to require significant retraining for our secretarial and our administrative assistant staff, and the interface with the financial piece is incredibly different. We use a PAC system. All these things mean absolutely nothing to you, I know. But I'm just telling you that because of everything, because it is going to be such a significant shift, plus there's a financial investment that we will have to put forward, which, you know, we're probably looking at $20,000 to $25,000 to make this shift. And at some point they're going to make us do that, but we may have to commit to Q and do that shift before we could integrate this product. Which is
According to what I'm reading on their website right now, the product they're trying to sell us to this company wouldn't integrate with it.
would integrate with Q
Or
or
would not.
so that's a problem.
Q is they want you to use for their attendance, just use any Google device, they want you to just use iPads for these things. It's just a cursory view.
So, to be fair,
Or what I
so for next month, I'm hearing we'd like some more information. I will try to get all these questions and we'll come back with as much information.
Good luck.
Okay, moving on, we need to go back to letter B, we need a motion to consider approval of the code of conduct section.
So moved.
Second.
So I just want to make sure everybody understands what's on the table. So the motion and the second are to approve the handbook language as written. There was significant debate last month about one particular item, which full transparency, I don't want to start it. But I did print that language out and handed it to you on page 20, so there wasn't any confusion. So if you are interested in making IDs not mandatory to be worn around their neck at all times, you would want to vote yes for the motion that was just put out. Okay. So if you believe that students should have to wear IDs, this would be optional language that would go if you vote no. So I just want to make sure everybody knows what they're voting for. So right now, the recommendation from the handbook committee is still the one on the table. So it's the one as presented last month.
And that's the one that's don't have to wear ID around that.
Correct.
They had that ID with them.
If asked for it, they must present it.
And then on page 23, am I still seeing that we're still charging?
So, right, so there was some discussion about that, but I didn't feel that there was consensus, so I just left it there. Do we want to have no fee, reduce the fee? What do we want to do? I didn't feel like there was a point to land on.
I don't think we should be making money on the product. When I asked the question of the cost of replacement ID is 54 cents. Replacement lanyard is $1.25. There is staff time involved in all these things, but do we want it to be punitive? Do we want to make it so kids have IDs? I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to know what page number was on, because if we have a charge, it probably should be more reflective of the actual cost. And I even think it would be $1 in my mind.
I agree with member Ryan on that. We're not in the business of making money on selling IDs and lanyards. Any further discussion?
I agree.
So if we're not, right now we have a motion.
So you would
to
amend the
accept
motion,
it.
you'd say amend the motion to change the fee to $1 from $5.
Oh, you wouldn't make the motion.
Right, so that would be, members of Montez
Yes, in my motion, so that the fee is reflective of $1 instead of $5.
You said all.
And just to go over that real quick, so when we redid the restorative practice part, just to help with this portion, if, someone forgot an ID, there's a portion to kind of help before you get to even get charged for an ID, so hopefully that helps a little bit. So if we at some point decide to move towards the attendance kiosk and all that jazz, this might help also. So being charged, since essentially shouldn't happen the way it was happening before, but I do think lowering it at least as well. Right, like it's reflective to the cost. Like it's not the first time created, like it was before. It's right. A learning process. Yes.
So like to call that drive to us, they'll produce it, right?
Right, you get a warning.
Yes, you do. Not necessarily.
How am I going to start with it?
Or you at least have an opportunity to show up at court and present it before you have to pay the fine.
So, for housekeeping purposes, Member Savant has amended her motion. Member Phelps, are you okay with amending your second? So now, the amended motion is to still include the original language that says student IDs don't have to be. But it would be amended to say that the after the restorative practice was called. So everybody's on the same.
Do we need any further discussion? I know last meeting we had substantial discussion about this. Does anybody else feel as though they have something to say? Let's see that. How's it?
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Okay, so that's a tie vote. What do we do in a situation with a tie vote?
Luckily, we have an attorney here, so I have Mr. Braun.
Say yes.
In the event of a tied vote, the motion doesn't pass, the expo remains.
Which means we don't have a code of conduct, which
Means the code of conduct from the code of conduct that presently exists goes forward. So if you want to amend the code of conduct, you have to have a vote to do so. The vote that passes to do so.
So at the August meeting, we would need to pass something. As it stands right now, we don't have one. I mean, we have the old one. We don't have anything new.
I think that would be fair, particularly given that looking at the code of conduct, there are a number of changes that I think the board is likely going to feel are fairly important.
No, I meant like this would be like in these 7 years. I've been sitting at this table. Let me clarify. Who knew that this would be the vote that had a split? No. Ladies. Alright.
No, can we discuss this a bit more, because it would be nice if we revisit it. It's dead for today.
I'm open for further discussion if the board so desires.
What's that? According to Robert's rules, we made a motion, we discussed it, we voted on it. Do we have to bring it back up for discussion? Because it's not on the agenda again. Or do we have to vote to reopen?
I think you have to vote for reopen discussion on the matter. You've taken a vote, you closed it out. If the board wants to continue to discuss the matter, they can do so. But if they have to reopen the prior matter pursuant to Robert's rules, because you don't have multiple agenda items for discussion. Technically, nothing in the Open Meetings Act, the Open Meetings Act itself says that you are not forbidden from talking about matters germane to the agenda. So go back and talk about matters germane to the agenda. I think there's every freedom to have that continued discussion in what matters.
Okay. Well, I guess we can, if you have comments, we can say those for comments by board members.
Or we put a motion on the floor to reopen discussion.
Your motion.
I move that we accept the committee's recommendation for revisions of the code of conduct with 2 changes. One, that the page 23 and the cost reflect a $1 charge rather than a $5 charge, and then include the requirement that students, John's writing in red here, just for discussion. Probably may not, that would be my motion. Okay? Those 2 changes of the proposed item that we had previously. Now we can discuss again. I think it'd be nice if we could come to some closure tonight. Can I say, Tina, you had John stand up for a reason. Do you want to explain your reason?
What I have been told at this table is that the purpose of wearing lanyards and having the ID out is so that we can know who is in our buildings. My argument has been that anybody could put anything on that lanyard, and unless you are purposefully walking by a member of our security team and they are looking at said lanyard and ID and face, we still don't have that knowledge. And anytime I see anyone wearing these lanyards, just like when Dr. Asplund stood up, it was a blank card. It just shows me he has a lanyard on. It does not show me that his ID matches his face. It does not show me that it has GHS and that he belongs in the school. It also doesn't tell me if that barcode is barcode associated with his name or not. So all of the reasons that have been stated to me as to why the lanyard has to be out physically on a person can be refuted as far as safety is concerned.
So your recommendation that our IDs are printed on both sides?
No, my recommendation, my question is, what is the purpose of having the lanyard on? Because from what I can tell, if we require an ID in a pocket, and they have to have it in their pocket because they have to use it for attendance in the classroom each and every time they walk in, they have to swipe it at lunch every time they go to lunch, then we know they have their ID and can present it when they need it. If you need to know who's in your building, then my suggestion, quite bluntly, is that our security team and our teachers get to know the faces of the students and the staff that are in the building. Rod used an example last month that he was able to make it all the way to the field house before someone asked for his identification.
Well, I went directly to the house, so I didn't go very far. And as soon as I entered, I was asked for identification.
But
Within minutes.
yes, but that still defeats the purpose. We have a check-in point for a reason. It is the front door of the high school for the very purpose of making sure that we don't have unidentified people in our building.
But if I was listening to the video correctly, I don't have to swipe my card, I can put the number in. So I physically don't have to have a card on.
How many of our students are 16 and up and have a driver's license? I still have yet to hear a convincing reason why the lanyard has to be worn outside on a person. And what it is doing is it is creating a headache from the conversations I have had with administrators and teachers, because they're getting into disagreements that at times can escalate into disciplinary issues with students about a piece of plastic around a neck, which takes additional time, which erodes relationships, which erodes trust, which erodes responsibility, which we are teaching our students. Relying on a lanyard and a piece of plastic around a neck also negates the responsibility of a security team to actually confirm who is in our building. Because they walk by and see it.
I don't think we've even consulted the security team, local law enforcement, fire department, EMS, or anybody that, according to our policies for targeted school violence prevention, that we're supposed to consult on these issues. Those are the experts that are responsible for the safety, and we're just unilaterally making these decisions.
I think we're confused down here as to whether there's a motion on action items on the agenda.
Yes, Member Lyon reopened the vote by motioning that we approve the code of conduct with two amendments, one on page 23 to charge $1 instead of $5, and to add Dr. Aslin's language about requiring lanyards with IDs on students, and that's the amendments that he made to the code of conduct motion that was currently on the table.
So that's just to make sure I understand, because I'm slower than all of you. It's an alternate motion on the same issue.
Yes.
But we're considering a secondary action item germane to the original action.
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
I was following your request.
Just trying to make sure I'm understanding what happened, that's all. Thank you.
You have David, please.
Okay. Allison?
Rodriguez? No. Sharpie?
Yes.
Montez? No. Besta? No. Lyon?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yeah.
Is that first?
Okay, so next month is before students start, so I guess it's still some days right there. We would bring back, I believe it would be fair since the one was on the table. We would bring back the amended one first with $5 for the $1. So we would keep the original language.
Correct administrator.
Yeah, well, we're waiting for the should now, not all the folks hopefully have to clear that. Fair, everybody knows that.
Okay.
That's what we're about.
Yes, sir. Okay, need a motion to consider approval of the amended 22-23 school calendar. So moved.
Thank you. So we would like to add 4 half-day school improvement days to the calendar. I'm remiss not putting the dates in front of myself. It's September the 16th, it's December the 9th, February 17th, and April 21st. So those would be half-day releases. These are all on Fridays. We did that for ease of family so that we didn't get confusing. They're always on Fridays. They're within each quarter. So those are to be used to help staff get some time to discuss some of the schedule changes that happen in working teams, get some professional development activities done on those days. So that is what we were asking.
So then the students will only be in school half the day.
Half the day, and every building's a little different, so.
Can we do that for a while? I don't get that. Right, no? You want to get that?
We don't have lunch on different days.
We're finding out lunch for the kids? I don't know.
If we bagged lunches.
Yeah, it depends on the dismissal time, but we found it was a lot easier if we did a sack lunch and take home.
Grab
and go type thing, just because breakfast and lunch are so close together that they can go home, eat in an hour, or whatever they want to do.
As a reminder, who's seconded that motion?
What?
Okay, Allison?
Should we?
Yes.
Let's have I plan.
Yeah.
Okay, a motion to consider approval of the risk management.
The reason everybody showed up tonight, let's talk about risk management.
Pages upon pages.
It's the same document we produce every year.
It's right there in the budget.
So as some of you may remember, the risk management plan is something that we have to revise, update the budget, and pass every year prior to passing our budget, because in order for us to be able to spend and access tort funds, we have to have an approved risk management plan. So tonight, that is what is in front of you, to approve the risk management plan that will allow us to put those elements in the FY23 budget, and that we can legally spend that money without entanglements.
Allison?
That's him. Samantha's I plan.
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
Rodriguez. I. Trippy.
Aye. Motion to approve job descriptions.
So moved.
Most of those job descriptions are really focusing on restorative practices or counseling positions, and touches pretty much all our buildings right now, except indirectly. So we have positions. We'd love to be able to hire licensed school counselors in all the buildings, but right now there's a paucity of applicants in those areas. So we've gotten creative, and we've put together some positions that don't require that licensure, but the expectation would be that those folks that would take those positions would be going back to school to get it, so that we could have some more counseling services in our grade schools, and then also restorative practices assistant principal in high school, who would also have responsibilities of training staff all over the district.
Allison?
Samantha's I plan.
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
Rodriguez. I. Trippy.
Aye.
That's him. I.
A motion to consider approval of personnel review.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? Allison?
Samantha's I plan.
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
Rodriguez. I. Trippy.
Aye.
That's him. I.
Any grievance update?
We still have one outstanding grievance. I'm meeting with the GEA on July the 25th, I believe, it's 25th, 26th, regarding an employee discipline matter at Lombard.
Okay.
Oh, and FOIA request I have.
All right, moving on to the comments by the Board of Education. Starting with right. Member Prescott. Member Serranos.
I think I talked to him.
On my left.
Well, I have to say, a good discussion tonight. I do applaud the attendance thing. I do have some concerns on those, but technology, we need to use it. I agree. We have a superintendent that runs our district, and I have to stand by his request for students to show ID. There's a reason that we do that, and so that's the reason where my stance is, and I believe in it also for another year. When we're going to add 600 more students into that school, we need to kind of know where they're at for the first year. So that's what I'd like to see for moving forward.
Thank you. Member Line.
I appreciate it. First, in the video we saw about the attendance system, in the background, the number of those shots are something that we haven't seen back by high school yet, which I hope will be in place before we have students return. That's the trophy cases, or we're doing video trophy cases. Why is everyone laughing? It should happen, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of things should happen.
So is that going to be in place before we have students?
Got to ask building and grounds.
I can tell you that the last piece of information I got last week, at the end of the day on Friday, was that they believe they could have the trophy cases without the doors put in the last week in August. So by the start of school, no. Shortly after school begins, yes. They may have doors by then, they may not, but I told them to go ahead and put in what they have, so long as they didn't have to take it apart again after they get the doors. They said they did not.
And the video things?
Video kiosks.
We're working on that.
We have a company we're going to go with, so now it's working out the details to get it going. So we narrowed it down to somebody that will give us a great product.
Great. And today's meeting, we did a carve out in our policy for these three athletic groups. They have a lower price than normal. And I'm going to ask us to explore maybe a carve out in our policy of publicizing community events. It came to my knowledge in reading our intergovernmental relation agreement with the public library. The only thing that they get out of it is a once-a-year email. I believe we're in the same business of being literacy entities, so I'd like to see if there's any way we can expand our relationship with them so our students are using that year-round literacy facility here in the community.
Thank you, Member Line. I don't have any additional comments other than thank you for everybody for showing up and watching online. Safe summer.
Oh, I do have one other thing, just a suggestion.
Okay.
It was not my suggestion, but I thought it was a great suggestion. Assuming it's completed, we would like to hold the September board meeting in the newly constructed auditorium. Everybody's okay with that.
Fine with me.
September, not August, so it's
That'd be awesome.
Are we expecting 600 people to show up to watch?
Maybe.
You never know.
Maybe. You never know. But we thought it'd be a nice way to showcase all that space.
Look forward to being there. Any future agenda items?
Yes, I'd like an update on the solar field here at Lincoln, please, and the status of what's going on with Willard.
Member Phelps.
Yeah, that, what the heck's going on at Silas Willard, why that we've seen nothing on solar, and why this out here. I'm surprised no one stole the fencing that's laying out there. You know, what's going on? I'd like to know.
Okay, thank you. Next meeting is Monday, August 8th at 7 p.m. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.